You three children, do you know the story of Ramachandra? A little bit? Fantastic. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Ready? Ramchandra had 3 brothers. Correct? What's the name of Ramchandra's 3 brothers? Who knows? You each can say one name. You get to say the first name. One of Ramchandra's brothers. Lakshman. Okay, next to you, the other one of Ramchandra's brothers, named? Here. Doesn't know. You know? Bharata. Ram, Lakshman, Bharata, and the other 4th brother, Shatrughna. So we've been hearing about Bharata. Ram, Lakshman, Bharata, and Shatrughna. The 4 brothers. And we heard the meaning of Bharata's name when they had the name-giving ceremony. According to the codes of Kshatriyas, when the 11th day, if my memory is right, that's when, after birth, that's when the name-giving ceremony is done. Now, Krishna's name-giving ceremony was done on the 40th day because it's stated that was the day it should be done. So Gargamuni gave Krishna and Balaram their names. But in this case, it's not Krishna and Balaram, it's Ram and Lakshman, and Bharata and Shatrughna. And Bharata's name was Bharata, meaning one who bears weight. He had the weight of the kingdom, and we're hearing also he had the weight of being misunderstood because of the bad behavior of his mother. His mother's name? Kaikeyi. Right? Kaikeyi? You know Kaikeyi's name? Yes. You know Kaikeyi's name? She's the one that said Ram has to go to the forest. That one. Kaikeyi. So Kaikeyi's son was Bharat. Bharat's mother was Kaikeyi. So she wanted that her son would become king. And there's actually a little history to this. The history is when Kaikeyi was given by her father in marriage to Dasarath, the father asked Dasarath for a pledge, a promise. And the promise was, her son, my daughter's son, should become the king. Although he wasn't the firstborn son. He was born one day after Ramachandra was born. But he wasn't the firstborn son, and Ramchandra was respected by everybody, including by Bharat. So, but his mother had this attachment that I want my son to become king. So she did what she did, and we heard yesterday evening how Bharat was so disturbed, and everybody was so disturbed. And we ended, where we ended yesterday is Bharata has made a determination that he's going to find Ram in the forest and persuade Ram to come back. And if somebody has to stay in the forest, I'll stay in the forest. And he can come back and become king. So that's his mindset. He was ready to inherit the throne of the whole world. You know how political people want controls things. He didn't have to do anything. The whole world was handed to him, and he didn't want it. What he wanted was one thing. The one thing that he wanted to be in Ram's service, and Ram should be the king. That's what he wanted. But he was misunderstood. We heard he was misunderstood by Ram's mother. The name of Ramachandra's mother starts with a K. Can you remember? Kaushalya? Kaushalya. Kaushalya spoke in such a way that she thought that Bharata conspired with his mother to take the throne from Ram and sit on the throne. And she spoke like that. She spoke in a very cutting way. And Bharata broke down crying and crying and crying. And she understood his heart. And then he went with his huge army to bring a grand procession back to Ayodhya with soldiers and ministers and brahmanas and the whole of Ayodhya kingdom back. But when he came with all those personalities, Guha thought maybe he has a plan to harm Ram. So he asked him. And Bharata broke down crying, and Guha could understand that's not his intention. And this is where we ended up yesterday. Bharata asked, please describe the scene where Sita and Ram spent the night with you. And he took them to the tree, and there was still the leaves. That was his bed, was a bunch of leaves, sleeping on the bare ground. And Bharata again started crying. And Guha said, I brought him the nicest meal we could gather from the forest, but he declined. Said, give it to the horses. Instead, just give me water. And one of my assistants made his hair into, what our modern times looks like dreadlocks. A certain kind of sticky substance, and like matted his hair. So Bharata said, from this day I will wear matted locks and tree bark, and I shall lay upon the bare earth to sleep, and shall eat only simple forest fare. And with this exchange, he barely slept. He decided, he became more determined to find Ram and bring him back. That's his mood. And so the next person, this is the slide we ended up with yesterday evening. It's a modern painting, as you see at the bottom, a 19th century painting of Bharadraj. Bharadraj, it turns out Bharadraj was one of Valmiki's disciples. Bharadraj. And Bharadraj was with Valmiki when Valmiki saw the hunter shoot the bird, the Krancha bird. The male Krancha bird was killed. Bharadraj was with him. So their ashrams are close by. Bharadraj and Valmiki, because we're going to hear this morning something about Valmiki as well. But Bharadraj, I'll read. Then with the help of Guha, Bharata and his army crossed the river Ganga and reached the outskirts of Bharadraj Rishi's ashram. It says in Ramayana, it took 500 boats to convey the vast army, and they have elephants and the whole thing. chariots and 500 boats. On receiving the guests, Vashishta and Bharata appropriately, Bharadraj Rishi, out of affection for Ram, inquired from Bharata, "What brings you all this way, leaving aside the onerous business of managing the state? Because of your mother's words, you are ruling the world as its undisputed monarch. I trust that you are here. You have not come here with some dark intention towards the sinless and perfect Ram." Hearing this, tears flowed from Bharat's eyes as those same words were piercing his heart repeatedly. This is his name, Bharata. Bharata has to bear the weight of being misunderstood. Have you ever been misunderstood? We all have. And it doesn't feel good. What do you do? We talked about this yesterday. What do you do when you're misunderstood? You have choices to make. Just shrug your shoulders or become upset or cry or slam the person, or you can do it. You have, options. But Bharata is taking one path. He's revealing his heart, and his heart is convincing. I'm going to read Krishna Dharma's Ramayana. Is really very nicely written. Late in the afternoon, the whole party assembled again on the other side of the river, ordering them to camp at that spot. Bharata went with Vashishta and other Brahmins to look for Bharadraj's hermitage. Out of deference to the great sage Bharadraj, whose only wealth was asceticism, Bharata approached him wearing only simple cloth, leaving his armor and weapons behind. With Vashishta at their head, the prince and his counselors went on foot and soon arrived at the sage's hermitage. As soon as he saw them at his door, the sage hurriedly rose, this is culture, and had his disciples fetch water to wash their feet. He embraced Vashishta, because they're peers, and offered blessings to Bharata, who had fallen prostrate at his feet. Bharadraj gazed at Bharata, whom he recognized as Ram's brother. The sage knew by his own mystic vision that Dasarath was dead. After inquiring about the situation in Ayodhya, the sage asked Bharata, same as what we see on the screen here. The sage's words cut into Bharata. Tears flowed from his eyes as he replied in a hurt voice, "If even you impute such motives to me, then I am truly ruined. I never approved my mother's aims. I cannot even imagine doing harm to Ram, nor will I ever accept the kingdom." Feeling that no one would believe his innocence, Bharata felt despair. He folded his hands and spoke imploringly, "The powerful Ram is the true ruler of this earth. I have come here to bring him back to Ayodhya. Falling at his feet, I shall make him return and then remain here in his place. All-knowing sage, please be gracious to me and show me where Ram is staying." Bharata's sincerity was obvious. This is how he convinced people, because his heart was pure. That's the best evidence that you've been misunderstood. You have a pure heart. The all-knowing Bharadraj smiled. He placed his hand upon Bharata's head, who sat before him weeping, and said, "I surely knew of your intention and spoke only to heighten your resolve and increase your fame. You are the worthy member of your royal line, O Prince, and are always dedicated to the service of your elders. Your devotion to Ram is beyond doubt." We have some nice images of Bhardraj Muni. They look a little different than this person in this painting. Here's Bhardraj Muni receiving him. And so there's another down at the bottom left corner. That's Bhardraj Muni sitting in his little ashram. And there's, of course, this is a different scene. This is Ram, Sita, and Lakshman when they met Bhardraj. Anyway. The following day, Bharata left Bhardraj's ashram and reached Chitrakoot. Well, before he reached Chitrakoot, they had some encounter with Valmiki, because it's in between, on their way to Chitrakoot. Because Bhardraj had advised Ram to go to Chitrakoot. That would be a nice place. So that's where they went, and he said that's where they went. On their way to Chitrakoot, they visited Valmiki's ashram. So it tells us where Valmiki's ashram. He had several, but this was one of them. Now he's going to have his interaction with Ram and Lakshman and Sita. So here's the text. Bharata left Bhardraj's ashram and reached Chitrakoot along with his army. When Lakshmana saw a big army bearing the flag of the Ikshvaku dynasty, he got very angry, suspecting Bharata had come with evil intention. Another misunderstanding. And he wanted to kill them all. However, Ram corrected Lakshman by glorifying the devotion of Bharata towards them, means both of them. So now I'll read because it's so nice. Accompanying Bharata, in addition to the ministers and the army and the Shishta and the sages, were the three queens. So he's introducing the three queens. He first introduces Kaushalya. Then he's supposed to, and then Sumitra. And becoming angry, hissing like a cobra, he spoke. Bharata indicated Kaikeyi. This one here is my mother, the wicked and vulgar Kaikeyi. It was by her intrigues that the great Emperor Dasarath died from anguish, and the mighty Ram now resides in a lonely mountain reach. Bhardraj, who knew the plans of the gods and the divine arrangements of the Supreme Lord, said to Bharata, "You should not censure your mother, O great prince. Do not think her guilty, for Ram's banishment will result in good for the entire universe. Indeed, it will bring happiness to the gods, demons, and rishis, along with the whole of creation." A little different picture on what she had done, the consequences of what she had done. Everything has a different. Look at it through this lens, it looks like this. Look at it through that lens, it looks like that. Same event. This is like being misunderstood. So what she did wasn't okay, but the consequences were good. And we're going to hear Ram say this session today. Ram says to Kaikeyi, "It was I who inspired you to speak like this. So don't blame yourself. It was I who inspired you to," because he's super soul within the heart of Kaikeyi. He wanted it to happen like this. Doesn't look nice, but he wanted it to happen like this. Okay, so do not think her guilty, for Ram's banishment will result in good for the entire universe. Indeed, it will bring happiness to the gods, demons, and rishis, along with the whole of creation. Bharata blushed deeply. He had been piercing his mother with angry looks, and he felt rebuked by the sage. Unable to immediately subdue his anger, he averted his gaze. He looked away and tried to assimilate Bharata's instructions. He stood up and walked respectfully around the sage. Receiving his permission to leave, Bharata ordered the army to depart and mounted his chariot. Guha, who was kind of like their tour guide, Guha accompanied the two princes, means Bharata and Shatrughna. As the huge mass of men moved off through the woods, they made a great noise, terrifying the deer and birds dwelling there. Slowly approaching the Chitrakoot mountain, they all thought only of Ram, longing to see him again. So the painting shows they're coming together, but I'm going to read Lakshman's mistrust. Lakshman has a short fuse. He wants to stand by virtue, and those that violate virtue, he wants to let them have it, particularly anybody that has designs on Ram. Ram and Sita descended to the river and found a secluded spot to take their bath. So Chitrakoot's up on a mountain, so they have to go down to bath in a river. As Ram conversed with Sita, he noticed in the distance a cloud of dust rising in the sky. Looking around, he saw frightened animals running in all directions and heard a terrific noise, which became progressively louder. Ram called out to his brother, "Lakshman, what do you think is causing this disturbance? A sound like a terrible crash of thunder is coming from the north." That's the direction of Ayodhya, Chitrakoot. Is some king or prince out hunting in the forest, followed by his army, or is some vast herd of beasts on the move? Please go and see. Lakshman immediately climbed a tall tree and looked all around. Fixing his gaze on the north, he saw in the distance a large army, crowded with elephants, horses, and chariots, and joined with a mass of marching foot soldiers. He announced to Ram and informed him, "Let Sita quickly find a cave." Lakshman advised Ram, "Extinguish the fire so that the smoke will not be seen. We too shall stand here clothed in mail," like their protective armor. Mail, British term. "And holding upraised weapons, for a powerful army approaches." Ram, who was not at all fearful, replied to Lakshman, "Look carefully at the ensigns." Ensigns means the flags on top of the chariots. You need a British dictionary to follow how he writes. Try to determine whose army you think it might be. Lakshman stared at the head of the army and saw a tall flag waving in the breeze, bearing the emblem of a Kovidara tree, kind of like a palm tree, kind of a palm tree. The prince became infuriated and looked at the army as if he might consume it with his gaze alone. "Clearly this is Bharata's army," he exclaimed. "I see there the mark of a Kovidara. Evidently he has secured the throne of Ayodhya and now desires to attain undisputed sovereignty by killing us both. Even now I see swift horses going ahead to seek us out." Lakshman seethed with anger. It is fortunate indeed that I shall now see Bharata's face, for whose sake you are enduring this forest life deprived of your sovereign rights. Surely he has come here as an enemy, and as such deserves to be killed outright. I see no sin in this action, O Ram, for Bharata has sorely wronged you. He's very protective of Ram. Lakshman descended from the tree and picked up his weapons. He held his sword aloft. Today, Kaikeyi, who is so desirous of the kingdom, will be seized with sorrow when she sees her son slain by me. I shall then kill her. Also, let the earth drink the blood of all these warriors. Beasts of prey will drag about the corpses of elephants and horses, as well as thousands of men pierced by my arrows. Killing Bharata along with his army, I will repay my debt to my weapons. Chivalrous talk. Ram replied gravely to the enraged Lakshman, and all it takes is his words, and Lakshman calms down. These sentiments do not befit you, dear brother. The mighty Bharata has come here longing to see us, and you wish to greet him with weapons? I have given my word of honor to remain in the forest. How then can I forcefully take the kingdom from Bharata, thereby gain sovereignty stained with infamy? Feeling admonished by his brother, Lakshman looked down and sheathed his sword. Ram continued, I will never accept a royal fortune, one at the cost of the death of my kinsmen. Indeed, I would only accept the kingdom for the pleasure and protection of my relatives, for I have no personal desire for sovereignty. If any joy should come to me that is not enjoyed by yourself, Bharata, or Shatrughna, then let it be reduced to ashes. Now, we're focused on Bharata. Ram knew Bharata's heart. Bharata was no less devoted to him than Lakshmana. They just had a different way of expressing their devotion. He could understand why his brother had come to see him. He also longed to see Bharata. Comforting Lakshman, Ram said, when Bharata heard of my exile, I am sure he would have felt his heart overwhelmed with affection and his mind distracted by grief. After censuring Kaikeyi with harsh words, he has no doubt left Ayodhya intent on bringing me back. Of this I feel certain. Lakshman felt ashamed to have spoken angrily about Bharata. He remembered the close and loving relationships the four brothers had enjoyed in childhood. Ram was right. Bharata could not possibly have come in a martial spirit. Lakshman blushed as Ram continued. I cannot imagine Bharata harming us even in his mind. Has he somehow previously offended you, my dear brother, so that you wax so wrathful toward him now? If you are set upon the slaughter of Bharata, then I shall order him to hand over the kingdom to you this very day. Certainly he will remain here in your place, clad in tree bark, while you rule over this broad earth. He knows how to bring Lakshman's anger down. Lakshman shrank in shame. It had been wrong of him to think badly of Bharata. So Ram spared Bharata from having to deal with that mistrust, misunderstanding. There was never a time when any malice or envy had been seen in Bharata. Lakshman tried to make amends for his previous outburst. It must be as you say, dear Ram. I think the mighty armed emperor himself has personally come here accompanied by Bharata. I mean, why didn't he think that initially, that Dasarath had come? That he's thinking Bharata is, now it's because they don't know that Dasarath has died yet. Our father will doubtlessly try to persuade us to return, handing you the sovereignty refused by Bharata. Indeed, I saw father's gigantic elephant rocking at the head of the army as it marched. Their vantage point on the mountainside, Ram could see the army coming into view. Spotting the king's elephant, he felt a sudden apprehension. Why was there no white umbrella over its head? Dasarath's elephant would not have come without the king, unless, that is, there was no king. Ram was fearful. So he has these human-like emotions, but in a short while, because this question came up yesterday, here he's thinking of himself and speaking of himself as a mortal. And shortly he's going to speak to Kaikeyi as divine. And he moves seamlessly back and forth, very comfortably back and forth between these two personas or moods. We should understand that the personality of Godhead at no time becomes less than omniscient. He doesn't become Bhagavan. He's eternally Bhagavan. But in these past times, Bhagavan experiences a whole range of transcendental emotion as do his devotees, a whole range of transcendental emotion, which is not the normal kind of emotion that we experience, or forgetfulness we experience. Rather, it has everything to do with rasa. But at no point in time does he become omniscient or does he lose his omniscience. There's influences of his own spiritual potency for his own spiritual pleasure, and he may during sometimes forget his divinity and at other times remember. It's important to bear that in mind as we're hearing pastimes of Krishna or Ramachandra. It's all transcendental. Along with Lakshman and Sita, Ram waited near his hut for Bharata's arrival. Now, in the painting, he's arrived, but that little section was Lakshman's mistrust and Ram's dealing with his mistrust. So now I'm going to be reading from Bharata coming before Ram. There's many, many such paintings. Here's another one of those many such paintings. This is a B.G. Sharma painting. And Bharata is at his feet. Oh, this painting, Ram is standing, but in the Ramayana, Ram is still seated. Sobs stifled Bharata's voice as he lay near Ram, his hands stretched towards his brother's feet. His face was covered with perspiration, and he called out, "Oh, my brother! My noble brother!" Shatrughna also shed tears and bowed before Ram. Ram and Lakshman quickly got up and closely embraced both of their brothers. The four princes, coming together, appeared as if the sun and moon had joined with Venus and Jupiter in the heavens. Ram asked Bharata what had brought him away from Ayodhya. Surprised to see him with matted locks and wearing a deerskin, Ram asked, "Why have you come here without our father? I hope that all is well in Ayodhya. Now he's omniscient. but he's speaking as if he doesn't know. And when he finds out, he has emotions, like one who finds out, dear beloved father is no longer world. As long as father lives, you should surely wait upon him with great attention. Still, I am glad to see you here, although you appear pale and emaciated. Why the ascetic dress, O noble Bharata? I think your love for me must be very deep. Ram gently stroked Bharata's head. Looking up, he saw Guha standing at a distance with folded palms, and Ram smiled at him. Ram was fully absorbed in loving exchanges with his friends and relatives, feeling pain and concerned to see Bharata's condition. He continued to speak. I hope you have not lost the kingdom due to immaturity and inexperience. Surely you know all the facets of diplomacy and kingly science, O powerful prince. By way of loving instruction, Ram asked after many aspects of the kingdom. He inquired if the people were properly protected, animals cared for, the army well maintained, and the brahmanas given sufficient charity. Bharata listened respectfully as his elder brother spoke. I see here all my mothers, said Ram. Indeed, it seemed that the entire kingdom of Koshala has accompanied you here, dear Bharata. This gives rise to grave doubts in my mind. Please tell me why you have all arrived here today, for you have aroused my curiosity. Bharata knelt before Ram, clasping his feet. Dear Ram, the act perpetuated by my mother was wicked, never approved by, so he's clearing his name, never approved by me. Casting you into the forest and afflicting the whole of Ayodhya with unbearable pain, you hope to see me installed as the king? That will never happen. Please return now with us, O Raghava, and take your rightful position as ruler of this world. Be kind to me and to all these people, O tiger among men. Ram felt compassion for Bharata. He questioned him again. What need is there for your adopting this mode of ascetic life, dear Bharata? The order of our father is that you become the king. I, too, stand enjoined by our father. Remain here in the forest. Our pious father's order is supreme. Therefore, without censuring your mother, Kaikeyi, you should enjoy the kingdom. For myself, I am happy staying here in obedience to our father, happier than I would be in attaining the imperishable abode of Brahma. Bharata's head sank. He knew his elder brother's mind. It would be impossible to convince Ram to transgress an order given by his elders. This is a theme that keeps coming again. It's his father, but it's also a cultural item, which we've mentioned like almost in every class. There's superiors, especially qualified superiors. And qualified superiors, their instruction is what one lives by. And, you need some qualified superiors. When there's qualified superiors, that's the culture. Still, he felt impelled to try to convince him, but he could not possibly take the throne in place of Ram. With a heavy heart, Bharata informed Ram of what happened in Ayodhya, and he tells him about Dasratha's demise. So there's a whole section where Ram breaks down, Sita breaks down, Lakshman breaks down, and they're sobbing, and together they go and perform the rituals by the river to the departed soul of their father. Then they return back Ram speaks with Kaushalya. As Bharata sat before Ram and Lakshman, the three brothers shone like three sacrificial fires. Bharata held Ram's feet as he spoke. The power to rule the world rests only with you, O Ram. I can no more emulate that power of yours than a donkey can emulate the gait of a horse, or a sparrow the flight of Garuda. Indeed, I am dependent upon you. Remember those 18 cardinal rules or cardinal lessons of Ramayana? One of them is paratantriya, feeling oneself dependent. Bharat has it. Dependent upon Ram. So dependent upon the Supreme Lord and dependent upon the devotees of the Lord, because he has that same dependence. Let the world behold you, shining with splendor on Ayodhya's throne. We shall take you there in state this very day. That's why he brought, all the elephants, things. All the people gathered there called out, "Well said!" upon hearing Bharata speak. With tears streaming from his eyes, Bharata sat looking up at Ram. He hoped desperately that Ram might somehow be persuaded. He could not imagine going back to Ayodhya without him. Seeing his brother and other relatives weeping, Ram felt compassion. Keeping his own grief in check, theme of sorrow. Ram, for the sorrow of those dear to him, he's feeling the same emotion. It's a transcendental emotion. It's not the kind that we feel. Ram replied. Then he gives some philosophy. Gives a little Bhagavad Gita. No man is free to act as he pleases. In this world, the embodied soul is dragged here and there by the all-powerful force of providence. No one can control that force. All gains will end in loss. Every meeting ends in separation, and all life has its end in death. As there is no fear for a ripe fruit other than a fall, so there's no fear for any man other than death. Everyone listened attentively as Ram spoke, their feelings of sorrow relieved by his instructions. This is the same message as we find in the Bhagavatam when Arjuna returned from Dwarka and spoke with Yudhishthira. He was feeling so terrible, negative emotion. And as he was speaking and speaking and speaking, he started remembering Krishna's kindness and speaking Bhagavad Gita. And as he remembered the words of Bhagavad Gita, his grief subsided. Same here. Hearing Ram speak, so the primary rasa is being restored. Secondary rasa was, and hearing helps the primary rasa become restored. It doesn't make the situation nice, but the indirect or secondary emotion takes its secondary place. Primary emotion and rasa is restored. The passing of days and nights quickly exhausts the span of all beings, even as the summer sun sucks up the water in a lake. You should grieve only for yourself. Why do you grieve for another? Death is our constant companion. He walks with us, sits with us, and having gone a long distance with us when we travel, he duly returns with us. Beloved brother, stroking his brother's head, continued. The power to prevent one's own death does not exist in a person grieving for another. Our father departed after a long life of piety, and we should by no means grieve. Because he's going to, no, he already grieved hearing his father's departure. Now he's giving a Bhagavad Gita class about don't grieve for the departure of our father. He's encouraging. I mean, this is what devotees do with one another, what friends do. Try to reconnect their heart with the eternal relationship with Godhead by various means, but that's the intention and the effect. That's what sadhu sangha does. That's what being somebody's friend is meant for. I mean, one can certainly comfort them, but comfort in a transcendental way is ideal. Our father departed after a long life of piety, and we should by no means grieve. We ourselves have embarked on the very same path trodden by the emperor, and will join him in due course. Let us therefore throw off grief and dedicate ourselves to the pursuit of piety, virtue, life of virtue, by which we too shall attain the blessed regions reached by the king. Ram looked around his hermitage. Thousands of people were crowded on the mountaintop, all looking toward him. There was complete silence as Ram spoke. Even the animals seemed silent. Only the sound of the river and the rustling of leaves in the breeze could be heard. Dappled shadows moved over the ground in the late afternoon sun. With a mild smile, Ram continued to address Bharata within the hearing of everyone there. Paints a picture with his words that you feel like you're there. The gifted writer. Father shed his old, worn-out body, and with an ethereal and undecaying form, he now sports in great happiness. Rather than grieve for him, we should now carefully do his bidding. For your part, you should rule over the earth, dear Bharata, while I, for mine, should remain in the forest until 14 years has expired. This will ensure our welfare in both this world and the next. Under no circumstance should we disobey our virtuous father. Ram spoke for more than an hour. So sometimes it's asked, is there, as in Krishna's pastimes, there's Bhagavad Gita. Is there something comparable in Ram's pastimes? The answer is yes, this section. So here he's only summarizing because it's not the full Ramayana, but Ram Gita it's called. This section. It's his Bhagavad Gita class. To the 1,000 there. Bharata felt joy to hear his brother's words of instruction, but he was also dispirited to see Ram's determination to stay in the forest. Ram stopped speaking. Bharata grasped his. Your position is glorious, O almighty brother. You are never dejected at adversity, nor exhilarated at finding joy. You are always able to distinguish truth from untruth. Therefore, you know what is real and what is only temporary, ultimately unreal. It is certainly the soul and not the body one should nurture. A little bit more. Bharata realized that Ram was only acting with philosophical understanding. He knew that Ram could not possibly act outside the codes of religion or morality. Nonetheless, Bharata was himself still doubtful about the justice of Ram's exile. He spoke to Ram in order to clear his doubts. And it works. He speaks, we should do what our father says. Ram paused for a moment, got down from his seat, lifted up Bharata and Shatrughna. You two should return to Ayodhya and protect the people. O Bharata, get yourself consecrated as king and rule the earth. I shall become the emperor of wild beasts. The white umbrella should be held over your head as you ride on the royal elephant. While, for my part, I shall go on foot, shielded by a canopy of trees. Leave with joy for the city, my brothers, and I, with Lakshman, will joyfully enter the woods. In this way we shall preserve our father's piety. Bharata said nothing. He felt reassured by Ram's reply, but was profoundly sorrowful at the prospect of leaving him. Almost done. He decides to fast till death. That's Ram agrees to come. I don't have a painting for that one. Here's the next painting. When Bharata saw Ram dressed as an ascetic, his hair matted, he let out a cry and fell prostrate. Rising up again, he gazed with tear-filled eyes at his beloved brother, who appeared like Brahma seated in his celestial assembly hall. Ram turned and smiled at Bharata, who, along with Shatrughna, was rushing toward him, stumbling even as he ran over level ground. Bharata swiftly approached Ram and fell before him. Anyway, so we covered that already. It's out of sequence. Here he's prostrated before him. There's different scenes going on in this painting. Here's Ram is at his feet. Nice painting. That same painting, Ram raised his younger brother and placed him on his lap. Stroking his head, he said, "Your humility is your real qualification. By virtue of this wisdom, you can protect the entire earth. Always seek the counsel of learned Brahmins and rule with confidence." Bharata was unable to convince Ram to return to Ayodhya without fulfilling the promise given by their father. Falling at Ram's feet, Bharata voiced his doubts. "My lord, how does the power to rule our vast kingdom exist in me? I'm young and inexperienced." Of course, she's just 3 days younger. But anyway, I'm young and inexperienced. Now, nor am I possessed of any great ability. Surely the kingdom will meet with ruin under my incapable guidance. So then comes the shoes. But before the shoes comes this scene. It was obvious that Ram was not going to be convinced by anyone to leave the forest. Bharata suddenly stood up and exclaimed, Seated upon blades of kusha grass spread on the ground, I shall remain here in front of Ram's door. Without taking food or water, I will not move until Ram agrees to accept the throne. Quickly, grabbing a bunch of grass from near Ram's hut, Bharata spread it out and sat down. Ram said in surprise, "Oh, Bharata, why do you take such a vow? Your duty is to rule the kingdom, not to sit on the ground like a destitute Brahmin." Bharata turned toward the people and implored, "Why do you not plead with my brother to return?" A leader of the Brahmana community stepped forward. "It is clear that Ram will not be swayed from his determination to follow his father's command. What can we do? Our hearts are breaking with the thought of Ram's separation." Ram glanced lovingly at the Brahmana and then said to Bharata, "Get up, O tiger among men. Return to Ayodhya. Become the king and rule with justice. In 14 years you will see me returned." Bharata stood up and replied to Ram, "If our father's order must be followed, then allow me to stay here in your place." He's trying every which way to, like. Ram gently admonished Bharata, telling him it was not possible for one's promise to be fulfilled by another person. Ram had given his word, and it was he who had to keep that word. He promised that when he returned to Ayodhya, he would accept the throne, but he would not, under any condition, return before the 14 years had expired. That was a big concession. The many eminent sages who were present had listened intently to the conversation between the two divine brothers. They were thrilled and astonished, thinking of the deep import of their discussion. Hosts of heavenly rishis, along with the gods, stood invisible in the sky. Quote, "Hearing this wondrous dialogue between Ram and Bharata, we long to hear it again and again," said one of the sages. "Oh, Bharata, please allow Ram to fulfill his promise to his father. By virtue of Ram's vow, Dasarath has ascended to the highest heaven, freed of his debt to Kaikeyi." So he pulls out the sandals, asks him to put his feet in the sandals. Ram agrees, pulls his feet out of the sandals, and then you know the rest. Bharata places them on his head. He places the sandals on top of the elephant, and when he goes back to Ayodhya, he places the sandals on the throne, and he rules on behalf of the sandals until Ram's return. I want to read what he says. Ram then says to Kaikeyi, because remember Kaikeyi is the instigator and she's Bharata's mother. Really nice. As the queens departed, Kaikeyi turned and spoke privately to Ram. She censured herself again and again, begging his forgiveness. The queen fell at Ram's feet. "I am entirely ignorant and have acted like a fool, but now I understand that you are the eternal supreme person." Ram confirms it. Who, because this question came, as we're discussing it multiple times. Sometimes he shows his human side, sometimes his divine side. He understands you're the divine person, supreme person. Who would not be bewildered upon seeing your human pastimes? O Lord, please forgive me and destroy my attachments to family and wealth. Ram smiled at her with affection. Quote, "It was I who, for the sake of the gods, prompted you to act as you did. You are not to blame, nor am I angry with you. Hardly anyone knows my real nature. I am never affected by desire. In the same way, ordinary man, I act simply to reciprocate the service and love I am given. Gentle lady, return to Ayodhya and live peacefully. Think of me day and night, and you will soon be freed from your attachment to the temporary world." A felt deeply relieved and glad, and with folded hands he circumambulated Ram and again joined the other queens. Bharata had the golden sandals placed on the royal elephant and shielded by the white umbrella. With the elephant at their head, the citizens of Ayodhya returned the way they had come. So where'd they go? They went back to Ayodhya, and this is a painting of the little cottage where he stayed. Yeah. For the coming 14 years I shall live in a hut outside Ayodhya, he said, sighing. I shall survive on only fruits and roots, and my hair shall be matted. At the end of this time, if I do not see you return, O Ram, then I shall enter a blazing fire. So there he is in his cottage worshipping the sandals, which means he's worshipping Ram. We have just 2 slides remaining. 3. There's an analogy that once a wild elephant trumpeted loudly to attack a lion, to attract a lion. A lioness and their cub. The lion came out of the cave to check what danger might be there, followed by the lioness and the cub. As the lion went ahead to face off with the elephant, the lioness took the little cub back into the cave. Similarly, Sri Ramachandra is a lion among men who went out of Ayodhya to face off with the elephant-like demons in Dandaka. These sandals carefully took Bharata back into Ayodhya to protect him. As the commentators like to observe, Bharata did not carry the sandals back to Ayodhya. Rather, the sandals carried him back safely and consoled him. Nice comparison, yeah? Poetic. Ramayana teaches us how to lead a life of virtue. Bharata is one such personality whose virtues can help us to attract the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the overall theme for this visit is the personalities of Ramayana. And when you think of Bharata, not just a name. I was hearing a lecture the other day, Prabhupada said there's 3 Bharatas. 1, Bharat Maharaj and Jad Bharata. But the name, one who bears a burden, and the burden is live a life of virtue, even if you're misunderstood, live a life of virtue, and the sincerity of virtuous life and dedication to Krishna, that's the strength that you carry. And the force that's, if anyone is going to be persuaded that you're of good character, it's that dedication that you have, that pure heart that you have. And that attracts the mercy of living your life that way. This is one of the practical applications. So here's final, next to final. How can we have the kind of surrender as Bharata had? Good question. Surrender means not doing what the body and the mind ask us to do. With your heart, do what the heart wants to do. The heart means guided towards Krishna. Take to your heart some wisdom coming from a surrendered person and put it into practice. Then you too can move forward in surrender. To do so, hear Harikatha or Ram Katha. Harikatha cleanses the heart, which leads to increased faith. Faith catalyzes surrender. As faith increases, surrender increases. So here he is. At least this is, he lived in a hut, but this shows something far more fancy than a hut. It's Nandagram, the place where he stayed. There's lamenting Bharat and Shatrughna with the garland and some of the queens behind him. And there's the sandals on the throne. Very nice painting. I like this painting. Here's the final slide. Upon his arrival at Nandagram, Hanuman saw Bharata, so they're returning back. Ram sent Hanuman ahead. See if Bharata is attached to being the king. If so, fine. So Hanuman saw Bharata dressed in tree bark and having matted hair. Bharata was living in a small cottage, subsisting only on fruits and roots, and he appeared to be very miserable and emaciated. Hanuman then approached Bharata, announcing, I have come as a messenger from Ram. He inquires about your welfare and wishes to inform you that he will soon return to Ayodhya. And Bharata? Hearing these words, Bharata's face immediately lit up with great delight. Then, becoming exhilarated with transcendental emotions, he suddenly fainted to the ground. Personality of Bharata. Taken us a while to cover, but reading from Krishna Dharma's book adds the nice flavor. Okay, so I'm gone way past 12:30. Let's see if there's any comments or questions or thoughts you'd like to share. Section. Anything? Okay, let's go online.
This is from Amara Mataji. She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, in Grandfather Bhishma's case.
Can you hear her in the back?
In Grandfather Bhishma's case,
Yeah.
He is sometimes spoken of critically for keeping his own word or vow of not ever marrying or not speaking a word during the disrobing of Mother Draupadi.
So if there's more.
Yes. In today's reading, we also saw Lord Ram wants to keep his word given to his father when he could have returned to service of the citizens. In the life of practicing devotees, is one's own vow more important or service at the moment? What is the criteria for us to make a proper decision on this? How does the Lord make such decisions? Thank you so much.
You understand the question? Want clarification on the question, or is it clear? Complicated question. First of all, that Bhishma made a vow and upheld his vow is not a point of contention. That Ram made a vow and upheld his vow is not a point of contention. Then comes, innuendos or subtleties or details of time, place, circumstance. How do you uphold the vow? The general rule is you uphold your vows. Be careful when you take a vow and then uphold it. A vow is a stronger word than give your word. Let's just make it softer and say you give your word. You'll tell somebody I'm going to be there at such and such time. or whatever something you say. I'm there. Something. If this happens, then you can count on me to do. If there's something, you do it because you've given your word. I'm trying to address your question. How do you decide? Keep your word. Be careful about giving your word, and when you give your word, keep your word. If there's something that's impeding you're keeping your word, you go to the person you gave your word to and explain to them. Don't just leave it silent, but you'll go and let them know I'm having difficulty, or I don't think I can meet that deadline, or I have to, I'm seeking your permission to redefine my commitment to you. I'm not going to be able to fulfill commitment, or something came up, and so it's not going to be possible. Is that okay? You seek the permission. This is not, you want to speak of spiritual master between you and spiritual master and you and Krishna. Just you and somebody, a friend, your spouse, a family member, whatever. Keep your word. So how do you make decisions about this? You keep your word. And if there's something that's impeding, then you ask for the approval of the other person to do something other than what you said you would do. Your word said. That's how a person of integrity acts, a person who's a leader in their own personal life acts. And it's not easy always. There's sometimes conflicting things that you're supposed to do. And how do you decide? And then comes the Mahajno Yena Gatasa Panta principle. You look at the perfected souls and what have they done in difficult circumstances. You follow that. Anything else in the room? Can one of the younger persons take the microphone around? Jai Sachinanda. Stand by, okay, for the microphone service. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you again for the wonderful class. I wanted to ask about whether the people knew about the divinity of Lord Ram, and were they acting like that? Like in one of the slides you mentioned about Kaikeyi, when she came to approach Lord Ram, she said that acknowledged that he was the Supreme Lord. But while they were growing up and doing various pastimes, were the other people aware that he is the Supreme Lord?
This comes up a lot. Okay, two things. One is, this is Krishna Dharma's rendering, and I don't know what it says in Valmiki Ramayana. I can check, but I'm not sure that what it says in Valmiki Ramayana is what he says she said. It's Krishna Dharma's version. So she may not have said that. She may or may not have said that. That's specific to that point, so don't get stuck on that point, because I don't know. Somebody, if Nityananda Pran is listening to this class, please send a text message in to say whether he said that or not, or she said that or not. Then comes this other question, aside from what Kaikeyi said or didn't say. When they're growing up, do they have an understanding? And the answer is, there's two places from those who are very serious readers and studiers of Ramayana. There are two cases where it's explicitly stated that he's the personality of Godhead. One of those is by Parshuram, when there's this exchange with the Vishnu's, and he says it explicitly. But there's so much, everyone's so shocked by Parshuram's mood and the whole scene and everything, it doesn't go in. It's in Valmiki. So did Valmiki acknowledge in Valmiki Ramayana? There's one place, I forget where the other place. In general, the answer is no. Generally, and they don't see the four brothers as Vishnu Tattva forms. They see them as exalted jivas, but they don't see them as Vishnu Tattva forms. I forget where the other place is, but otherwise it's not strongly mentioned in Ramayana. Okay? Yeah.
Can we compare it to the Vrajalila where Lord Krishna, like all the residents were covered by Yogamaya so that
It's similar,
Lord Krishna
but not
could...
the same. It's Yogamaya for sure. And Yogamaya facilitates rasa, an intimate kind of loving exchange. That if one sees them as the personality of Godhead, there isn't the same kind of intimacy. But not seeing that way facilitates intimate. We don't have these kinds of exchanges. I mean, in Vaikuntha, it's on veneration. Aren't these kind of exchanges. Or Kaikeyi, somebody says Narayan has to go to the forest for 14 years. Else? Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Now we're going to have Arti. Yes? That's what you wanted, right? You want to see? He wants to ask a question. That's okay. You ask your question, they'll bring the Arti tray at the same time.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Go ahead.
For giving us Association of Bharat. Let's see. I'm going to frame it correctly. Bharata was able to convince those that doubted him or his intents through his purity of his pure heart.
Yes.
And so what was in the heart came out.
Yes.
In terms of his thoughts, his words, and his deeds. So when one is a sadhaka and one has thoughts or intents, how can one judge the purity of one's intentions? I can frame it in my own
This
words,
is
but
self-introspection or another's intention?
Self-introspection.
Well, my standard answer for a question like this is take it for granted that we're in this mixed position. Unless there's somebody that or that you know of yourself as being a pure devotee, take it that there's a mix. There's some degree of sincerity and some degree of something other than. But that keeps one humble, and you can lean this way or lean that way, but you nourish the sincere side, and you make your best effort to uproot anything else. It's a cultivation. Cultivate the garden, remove the weeds. So you just, to whatever degree there's something that's other than the interest of Krishna, and let me make my best effort to uproot that and act upon the interest of Krishna's side. Whatever that's going to look like, let me go there to my capacity. And you keep exercising that sincerity or bhakti muscle, and it gets more strong.
Second,
Um,
I really love Bharat's question to Lord Ram, where he says, I only caught a portion of that slide, where he asked Lord Ram, how does the power to rule our vast kingdom exist in me? Can you re-summarize? And I really like the analogy of the sandals carrying Bharat to Ayodhya, not vice versa, which is what sometimes you get in other translations.
Poetic.
Yes.
True.
So, can you re-summarize Lord Ram's instructions
Yeah, it's
for that question?
yes. It's the order of your Father, the order of our Father. Just follow the order of our Father. The power is there. He's giving the instruction. You're taking, oh, you want to be my service. I'm giving the instruction of. So, Prabhupada said on more than one occasion, within an instruction given by Krishna or an instruction given by the spiritual master, the power to carry out the instruction is within the instruction. Very simple statement. But one who has that faith, then there's power to carry out ruling by the instruction. And qualification and everything else comes to one who has that faith and that mood. So, nice lesson. We have lots of lessons in life to learn ourselves, and this is a really good one. There are many cases, maybe all of us, if not most of us, have been asked to do something that we don't feel we're qualified to do. It's like, whoa. And within the request to do is, like Prabhupada was asked to do something he considered himself incapable to do. He prepared himself, but while carrying it out, he was feeling it's not me. It's my Guru Maharaj giving this instruction that's enabling me. And I've always had implicit faith in the instructions of my spiritual master, is Prabhupada's words. And that's how he lived his life. And that's where the power came. Yeah. 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 Okay, let's go to Arti. You ready for Kirtan? More than ready. And we need a cartel player. Do we have a cartel player? There's the microphone stand. You can sing with the microphone stand.